There comes a point in life where you slowly begin to realize that the problem is not necessarily your circumstances, your job, your relationship, or even your lack of opportunity. The truly uncomfortable realization is that somewhere along the way, you started repeating the same version of yourself over and over again, almost without noticing it. The same habits, the same emotional reactions, the same fears, the same excuses, the same routines that once felt temporary but somehow became your entire life. And what makes this even more unsettling is that from the outside, everything may appear completely normal. You continue functioning, answering messages, showing up to work, taking care of responsibilities, smiling at the right moments, and doing everything a capable adult is supposed to do. Yet internally, something feels strangely disconnected, as if a deeper part of you quietly stopped moving forward a long time ago. What many people never realize is that human beings naturally adapt to what is familiar, even when that familiarity slowly destroys their confidence, their excitement, and their sense of possibility. The brain is designed to keep us safe, and unfortunately, safety often feels more important than growth. That is why people stay in situations that no longer fulfill them, why they keep postponing the goals that genuinely matter to them, and why they convince themselves that maybe wanting more is somehow unrealistic or selfish. At first, this emotional compromise feels harmless because comfort creates the illusion of stability, but over time, comfort can quietly become a prison that slowly shrinks your sense of self. The dangerous part is that every time you ignore something important to you, your mind begins collecting evidence about who you are becoming. When you repeatedly silence your instincts, avoid difficult decisions, or abandon goals that once inspired you, you unintentionally teach yourself that your own desires cannot be trusted. Eventually, people stop seeing themselves as someone capable of change and instead begin identifying as someone who simply survives. That shift happens gradually, which is why it is so easy to miss, but psychologically, it changes everything because identity is not created by what you hope for occasionally. Identity is built through repeated behavior. Your actions become proof, and over time, your brain starts believing the story those actions tell. A moment that changes everything is usually not dramatic. It often begins with a quiet realization that you can no longer continue becoming someone you do not genuinely respect. That awareness can feel painful because once you see your own patterns clearly, pretending becomes impossible. But it is also the beginning of transformation because honesty creates the possibility of change in a way denial never can. One of the biggest misconceptions people have about personal growth is the belief that confidence comes first. Many people spend years waiting to feel ready before they take action, imagining that one day they will suddenly wake up feeling fearless, motivated, disciplined, and emotionally certain about the future. Unfortunately, life rarely works that way because confidence is usually the result of action, not the cause of it. Human beings build self-trust through evidence, and that evidence only appears when we repeatedly do difficult things despite discomfort, uncertainty, or fear. This is why avoidance becomes so psychologically damaging over time. Every time you delay an important conversation, postpone a meaningful goal, or convince yourself that you will start later, your nervous system temporarily experiences relief. But your identity quietly absorbs another message about who you are. The brain begins associating discomfort with retreat instead of growth, and eventually even small challenges start feeling emotionally overwhelming. Ironically, people often think they are protecting themselves by avoiding discomfort, while in reality they are increasing anxiety because stagnation creates far more psychological tension than movement ever could. There is also a deeper emotional exhaustion that comes from constantly pretending. Many people spend enormous amounts of energy managing different versions of themselves depending on who they are around. carefully adjusting their personality, opinions, and behavior to avoid judgment or rejection. Over time, this creates a kind of internal fragmentation where people no longer feel connected to their own instincts because they have become experts at performance rather than honesty. That is why truth becomes such a powerful, stabilizing force psychologically. The moment you begin expressing what you genuinely think, want, and value, something inside you slowly starts reorganizing itself. Your mind becomes calmer because you are no longer fighting yourself internally all day long. Real confidence is often misunderstood because people associate it with being loud, fearless, or constantly successful. But genuine confidence is much quieter than that. It is the ability to trust yourself enough to face reality honestly, even when reality feels uncomfortable. It is knowing that you can survive difficult emotions, make hard decisions, and continue moving forward without abandoning yourself every time life becomes uncertain. That kind of self-respect cannot be purchased, imitated, or faked because it is built slowly through repeated moments where you choose courage over avoidance and truth over temporary comfort. The fascinating thing about identity is that it begins changing long before your external life fully reflects it. Most people imagine transformation as one massive breakthrough moment where everything suddenly becomes different overnight. But lasting change usually happens much more quietly than that. It begins in small private moments that nobody else sees, moments where you start responding differently to yourself and to your own life. Maybe you finally wake up when you said you would instead of negotiating for another hour in bed. Maybe you speak honestly during a conversation that normally would have terrified you. Maybe you stop apologizing for taking up space. Or maybe you finally begin working on something you have postponed for years because part of you was afraid of failing before you even started. At first, these actions may seem insignificant, but psychologically, they are incredibly important because every small action becomes new evidence for your brain. Slowly, your mind begins updating the story it tells about you. Instead of seeing yourself as someone who constantly retreats from discomfort, you begin recognizing moments of courage, discipline, honesty, and resilience within your own behavior. This is why transformation is built through repetition rather than emotional intensity. Motivation comes and goes, but repeated actions slowly create a completely different self-image over time. Something else also begins changing when you stop betraying yourself constantly. Your energy shifts. People often think exhaustion comes only from hard work, but emotional exhaustion frequently comes from living in conflict with yourself for too long. When your actions finally begin aligning with your values, there is a sense of internal stability that starts emerging almost naturally. You no longer need to spend so much energy convincing yourself that everything is fine, because deep down you know you are finally moving in a direction that feels real to you. The beautiful part about this process is that you do not need to become fearless before your life changes. Fear will still exist, uncertainty will still exist, and difficult moments will still exist, but your relationship with those experiences begins transforming. Instead of seeing discomfort as evidence that something is wrong, you begin recognizing it as evidence that growth is happening. And over time, the version of yourself that once felt distant and almost impossible to imagine slowly starts becoming familiar. Not because your life magically changed overnight, but because you changed the way you repeatedly respond to yourself, your fears, and your future. If this video resonated with you, then you'll probably want to continue with the next chapter of this series because everything we talked about today connects deeply to what comes next. You'll find the full playlist linked on screen, and if you want more self-improvement and mindset content designed to help you grow, then subscribe to Clever Girl Academy.